The UAW has now reached tentative agreements with all of the big three automakers, Ford, GM, and Stellantis. UAW President Shawn Fain is already thinking about the next steps in the union's fight, including expanding union participation.
One of our biggest goals coming out of this historic contract victory is to organize like we've never organized before. When we return to the bargaining table in 2028, it won't just be with the big three, but with the big five or big six.
So obviously Fain has big ambitions here, but there also are maybe big ambitions for what this means more broadly for unions in the U.S. For perspective on that, we turn to Arthur Wheaton, Director of Labor Studies at Cornell University. Thanks so much for being with us. This is a question that we have consistently been asking here and exploring. Let's focus first on autos. Are we going to see a bump in union participation, and are we going to see an expansion to, I don't know, attempts at Tesla, for example, in the wake of this?
There's already a negotiating group for organizing Tesla already. So they are already getting set to do that. And you have to remember the main plant in Fremont, California used to be a UAW plant. So it was where General Motors and Toyota joint venture. So it's had unionization in that building. So they're going to try to fight and get more organizing again. But it's tough to organize an anti-union company.
What can they do to overcome that? I mean, are there any paths that you see for Tesla to potentially become unionized?
The biggest path they just accomplished, they've got a tentative agreement. Once that agreement gets ratified and it's confirmed, then a lot of the non-union auto companies will either have to pay more or face the possibility of having organizing drives in their plant. So Tesla used to claim that they paid more than the UAW wages, but this contract really raised the lower paid temps and newer hires, raised their wages a lot. So it was massive increases. So they will be looking for that in other auto plants as well.
And Arthur, I'm interested in what you made of sort of Shawn Fain's tactics here. You know, it was different. It was aggressive, Arthur, right? He calls out the companies. He hits the cable news shows. He wears the T-shirts that say "Eat the Rich," right? What did you make of his tactics? What did you make of his strategy? And do you think that those tactics, strategy, that style, Arthur, could be replicated by other union leaders? Or is it just distinctive to Shawn Fain?
I think it can be replicated because a lot of what he did is looking back to the past. So he based it on the 1937 sit-down strikes in Flint. So that strategy's been used, and some of the things he's doing with the international and the global labor movement are what Walter Reuther did for the 50s, 60s, and early 70s as well. So they can be replicated, and it's not too different from what they did at the Teamsters and UPS for some of the same things. Even though they did not end up in a strike, they used a lot of the same tactics.
Could we potentially see an acceleration or re-acceleration, I should say, in union membership in the United States as a result of this?
I think you will see an acceleration in activity, but the labor law makes it difficult to win the organizing drives if a company tries to be anti-union, hiring consultants to try to block it. It's still a big leap, a big hurdle, but I think you will see a lot more activity in things to increase wages and benefits to avoid the organizing drive. And I do think that they will have some success in organizing new plants before this contract expires 4.5 years from now. It's easier to organize when you can say, look at all the big wins we just got. Look at, nobody thought we could do it, but with a union and solidarity, you have this opportunity. So I think it will help their organizing drive.
And do you think, Arthur, the way this was all politicized, President Biden obviously was right there, flew to Michigan, showing solidarity. Did that have a positive impact? Does it have a negative impact? Or does the politics really, the politicization of it really not matter in your opinion?
I think it does matter. So I think having the sitting U.S. president of the United States join the picket line saying, I'm with the UAW, it gives credibility or at least additional credence to some folks saying, yeah, there is some legitimacy to what they're doing here. And it also makes a difference for the politics for the National Labor Relations Board and who gets appointed in those positions. The previous administration was very much anti-union, and the rulings made it more difficult for unions to win their arguments. Now the NLRB is a little bit more willing to hear things and make changes more beneficial for the unions.
The other big question, of course, Arthur, is whether this all can be duplicated in a different labor environment, in a less tight labor environment. Do you think that it can?
Having solidarity and going out on strike helps. It can make a difference, but you had a lot of factors that were lined up in favor of the labor market or for the union. So you had very low unemployment. You had a history of very high inflation where they haven't negotiated raises in over 4 years. So this is the first raise in 4 years. And everyone knows that their pocketbook has been stretched the last 4 years, and it was time to make it up. That may not be the case next year or the year after that. So you have to strike while the iron is hot, do what you can when you can. And there's very much a lot of public support for unions. It was 80% in favor for the UAW versus 20% for the automakers.
Arthur Wheaton, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.